Hello guys, my name is Graham Robinson and I'm one of the co-founders of Keysecure, and we provide multi-network SIM cards, mostly to businesses. At base level, it's a wide area coverage SIM card, and it gets its extra coverage simply because it connects to Vodafone, O2, 3 and EE. So it has more masts that it can connect onto. So that's like the basics of it. However, there's a lot more that we are doing and can do with the SIM card. And in this video, I'm just going to explain a little bit more about the remote access features that we can add in at a SIM level, and why people use them, how they use them, and why it's just super cool in certain circumstances, not so in others. So, imagine a business with systems or assets that are deployed all over the place, tens or hundreds of miles away from their head offices or wherever they happen to be working from. And this business needs at times to remotely access these systems or routers or whatever it might be, okay? The last thing they want to do is jump in a car to access the systems that are connected to the internet over the SIM card. Now there's all different ways of doing it. I get that you can add VPNs onto the routers and there's other ways, but the way we do it doesn't require any third-party software, no additional VPNs, no nothing. We can give customers remote access to the private IP address on the SIM card over a VPN. So the SIM card is slotted into the router or system. Client logs onto the VPN. That brings them on net onto the Keysecure network. So they are now actually connected into the core of Keysim, which is essentially a cluster of data centers that are all in the UK. And at the point we build their VPN, we allocate their specific SIM cards to that VPN. So them IP addresses are only accessible from that particular VPN. It's an important point because some companies will give you a generic VPN where everybody can access everybody else's, which we don't like. So that's how it started, and we were assuming it'd be one VPN per customer. And then it got a little bit more complex because you were finding clients who required like master access to all of the SIM cards, but the services they were providing would sometimes need a customer to also have remote access. So we made it that you could create sub-VPNs and VPN groups. So there can be one VPN that can access all the IPs. Customer A can access theirs, customer B can access theirs, customer C can access theirs, and so on and so on and so on. And the clients like it because it's all super secure. There's nobody that's getting shared access to anybody else's IP address ranges. Once you've got that basic remote access in place, the world's your oyster. You can obviously connect to the interface of the router and whatever port that might be. And then for the systems that are plugged into the routers, they just set up port forward rules inside the hardware. Dead simple. If you know what you're doing with basic networking, it's dead easy. And the advantages are there's no extra data consumed at all because the router is continually listening with its ears open, but they are already on net because they're in the Keysim network. So we don't actually need to keep a constant live data stream going to keep the VPN connected. So a little bit less data consumed. Doesn't use much anyway, the VPN systems, but over a lot of SIMs and a lot of devices and a lot of time, it's a lot of data and a lot of cost. So that's a good advantage of doing the VPNs like this. we absolutely hate public fixed IP addresses. These are these horrific things where you assign a public IP to a SIM card and literally just go onto Google and type it in and it will connect you to the interface of the router. They're terrible. They get absolutely battered with just random traffic, essentially. Attacks, cyber attacks. And people counter-argue that and say, well, it's okay because we're going to firewall the router to only answer to our IP addresses, so it will reject anything else that happens to hit it. And that may be true, but by the time the reject happens, we've already consumed data. It responded no, it still uses data, it still takes bandwidth. And we buckled early on because we really wanted customers, so we would say yes to public IP just to grab the client back then. And twice it went horrifically bad. One of them used 100 gigabytes of data in just, must have been a tax, God knows what it was. They always come back then and ask, why did it happen? Well, I have no idea. It was a public IP. You asked us to make it open to the public and we did it. And now look what's happened. So we don't ever allocate public fixed IPs to SIM cards anymore. It's not good for the client and not good for us. There is certain times where public access is absolutely needed. So rather than leaving the clients with absolutely no alternative, we created this really quite niche idea where the customer tells us what specific ports they would like to hit on a SIM card, and we will give them back a public IP address and a random port, something like anything up to port 65,000, and that will give public access to that SIM card and that port. Slightly better than public fixed IP, because somebody's going to have to guess the IP address and the random port that we've allocated. Still not ideal, so they're going to have to put in their rules in the router. And that's it in a nutshell. And loads of businesses now use the Keysecure VPN. There was one in London, and they were saying that if it was heating controls, and they said in the past they would have to visit site to do diagnostics work, and it could be on like the other side of London, and they said it can take hours just to get a few miles across town, and back can be a day's work. And they had, I think, like half a dozen of them, and they said over like a 6-month period they prevented 5 site visits, like 5 full days work. And they just have the SIM sat there with the VPN, doesn't consume any data whatsoever, and if they need remote access, they dial in and they pay next to nothing per month for it, right? So there we go. That's Keysecure VPNs. As you probably guessed, I am not the technical person within Keysim. We have techies and boffins behind us. I'm just the mouthpiece. So any technical questions, pop them in comments and I'll go back to them and ask them what the answers are. But that's it in a nutshell. Keysecure VPNs.